Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the Voice of Reason. Today we're continuing our ongoing coverage of the war between the Russian Federation and the Ukraine. So today, as I speak, the Ukrainians have started the mandatory evacuation of Pokrovsk. Again, we have talked about this previously. As Russian forces continue to advance on Pokrovsk, this major supply hub and transportation hub as well. And it does look like the Russians are continuing to advance at a fairly rapid pace. They are advancing approximately 2 to 3 kilometers per day towards Pokrovsk. And it does appear that the Russians actually have the intent to seize the city. Now, when is that going to happen? Is that going to happen within a week, 2 weeks? Difficult to say at this point. The Ukrainians have and are continuing to fortify the town. They are also attempting other operations in other parts of the theater of war against Russian forces designed to try and divert Russian forces from the ongoing Pokrovsk offensive, the Donbas offensive, towards other locales. Now, that other locale primarily is the Kursk incursion. The Kursk incursion. So we have a pretty good idea now of the Russian force disposition that is currently present in the Kursk area of operations. We believe right now the Ukrainians are very worried about a possible double envelopment operation starting from the west. Starting from the west, so what we're seeing is Ukrainian forces are attempting to destroy the bridges across the Sem River, specifically bridges such as this. These would allow Russian forces to move south, possibly directly into the Ukraine, and then pivot south by southeast in an attempt to cause a double envelopment operation with forces, Russian forces also attacking from the south to north as well in this direction. Now, what we know about the Russian force disposition right now is reportedly anywhere from 10 to 12 battalion tactical groups, battalion-sized elements of the Russian military. Now, these are all not ground force formations. These 10 to 12 Russian battalions comprise elements of the FSB. They comprise elements of the naval infantry forces, ground forces, and Spetsnaz GRU would have also been brought into this conflict. We're also hearing that it is possible that the Russians could be looking at an airborne attack against Ukrainian forces. And specifically, what we're talking about is these newly created ground force air mobile units that are also augmented with the Russian airborne forces and Spetsnaz GRU forces as well. Now, what we could be looking at is the possibility of a Russian air mobile operation designed to prevent the Ukrainian military from retreating from areas in the Kursk incursion and thus capturing or destroying the entire Ukrainian force that has been committed to this operation. Now look, the Ukrainians are very much worried about this. The Ukrainians, going into this operation about 2 weeks ago, actually believed they were going to get much further in this operation. This was really designed to be a shock raid, designed to draw media attention from the devastating defeat that is happening in the Donbas offensive. This was designed originally for the Ukrainians to do a spearhead offensive all the way to the city of Kursk. There was also talk and discussion about the Ukrainians launching a Thunder Run style operation, that sort of the same operation the U.S. did in Baghdad during the 2003 invasion of Iraq. The Ukrainians wanted to do much of the same thing near Kursk. Their first objective was to take control of the nuclear power facility to the west of Kursk. This is this location here. The follow-on operation, if the Russian forces were to break down in this attack, was to essentially drive all the way to Kursk. This would have been a rapid advance all the way to the city of Kursk. That would have, at least the Ukrainians believed, would have shocked the Kremlin, would have shocked the Kremlin leadership into immediate peace talks. Didn't work. The Ukrainians have gotten nowhere near Kursk. The units that the Ukrainians believe would fracture very quickly, these were the FSB border guard units. They believed that they would envelop and destroy those units rather quickly and have them surrender. The problem for the Ukrainians is many of these FSB units actually fought. They fought. Not only that, local forces, local police, local individuals just grabbing a rifle fought against Ukrainian forces. If not for those efforts by those local Russian forces in these border areas, the Ukrainians may have busted all the way through and gotten close to Kursk, or even seized the power plant. But it didn't happen. And then the Russians were able to bring in very quickly other forces, and that was another mistake that the Ukrainians were not aware of either. They did not believe that the Russians would be able to maneuver the amount of forces that the Russians did maneuver in these blocking formations against Ukrainian forces. So we've seen the Russians with a great deal of deployment capability in terms of being able to move forces from other parts of the conflict. We know that units, Spetsnaz units, naval infantry units that were deployed in the Crimea and the Kherson region were very quickly moved from Crimea and other parts of the Russian Federation to the Kursk area of operations. We have seen the Russians be able to deploy elements of the, again, Spetsnaz GRU and high-quality units of the Russian National Guard as well. These units may have come from a special operations unit actually based in Moscow. And those units were brought rapidly in to be used as blocking formations against this Ukrainian operation. But the Ukrainians know now that any aspiration towards Kursk, seizing Kursk, a Thunder Run style operation inside of Kursk, is over with. That option is done, and now they have to ask the question: do they stay? Do they stay in the Kursk Oblast? Do they set up defensive positions and try to wear the Russians down in a Russian anticipated counteroffensive? Or do the Ukrainian units retreat back towards Sumy? So that is what is being deliberated right now. It does appear that the Ukrainians are holding for now. And at some point, we do believe that the Ukrainians will probably be forced to withdraw back towards Sumy, back across the Russian-Ukrainian border. And again, if not now, at some point the Russians will compile a force that will be large enough to evict Ukrainian forces from Kursk. Not only that, we continue to see the Russian Air Force targeting Ukrainian forces, striking Ukrainian forces essentially 24 hours a day, both with strike aircraft, Su-25, Su-24, Su-30s, Su-34s, and then we're also seeing Russian helicopter gunships as well, and Lancet drones continuing to strike Ukrainian forces. Look, the Ukrainians do not have an air force that can counter the Russian Air Force that is operating over southwestern Kursk. They just don't. They do have a certain amount of air defense capacity that they've moved up towards Sumy, but by and large, the Russians are eventually either going to destroy this force, or this force is going to have to move outside of the Russian Federation. Now, there's also been some talk about the quality of the Ukrainian forces that were involved in this operation. Essentially, the 3 mechanized brigades, including one of those motorized mechanized units, was an airborne unit as well. Now, those 3 brigades were also reinforced with other battalion groups from essentially about 5 other brigades. So a total of 8 brigades, 3 entire Ukrainian brigades with elements, battalion-sized elements, from about 4 to 5 other Ukrainian brigades. Now, as we look at video evidence of the Ukrainian incursion, as we look at the Ukrainian troops, their kit, their makeup, these are not the same Ukrainian troops that existed at the start of the Russian operation against the Ukraine. These are different troops. These are not of the same quality. Now, is it simply due to a fact that the Ukrainians used subpar units in this operation, or could this mean that we are seeing the Ukrainian army degrading? And I've talked about before the average age of a Ukrainian soldier in his late 40s, the average death of a Ukrainian soldier that has been killed in action also in his 40s as well. They're older. If you look at their kit, their equipment, it's not the same as what they had early in the conflict. That means a lot of these units, a lot of these brigades have been reconstituted with, in some cases, much older equipment. We have seen the operations taking place in Kursk Oblast, the Kursk region, with Ukrainian forces using ancient BMP-1s. And that's what is happening. So again, the question is, were they using less capable units, or is the Ukrainian military simply less capable because of the casualties that have taken place and the losses in equipment that have taken place over the course of the conflict? We here at MFAM believe it is the latter. We believe that the Ukrainian military is degrading. It is degrading, and then eventually, unfortunately for the Ukrainian military, it is going to collapse. Now, is that going to happen towards the end of the Donbas offensive? Difficult to say at this point. We will have to say. But that sums it up for today. We will continue to monitor and report. Thank you for joining us. More to come very, very soon. As always, have a good day.